college football, all the storylines. And here comes Connor Stalions back into our lives. Really never left with Michigan and the sign stealing scandal and all of it. But it does amaze me. At this time last year, we're about to have the, go into the season where you've got the allegations of recruiting issues at Michigan. Jim Harbaugh's in denial. He's not wanting to cooperate with the NCAA, who then comments and says, how dare you? We're not going to give you the 4-game leeway here. They eventually takes the 3. All that being said, we go into the season. Then October 31st hits. And allegations of sign stealing. Connor Stalions is a household name for college football fans. And he's never left. And neither have the denials of Michigan, of Jim Harbaugh, and, Connor Stalions loses his job, takes the fall, is all over cameras from network affiliates to national TV, on the sidelines, and, of course, on camera where it's documented with coordinators. And now he's on camera, debuting today on Netflix. Sign Stealer, the Untold series on Netflix. And wouldn't you know it, here we are, week 1 of the following season, and we're about to have more headlines with Connor Stalions in Michigan. So the denials have been there. Deny, deny, deny. And now even Connor Stalions is going to play the victim, and he's going to deny that he was stealing signs and doing anything as far as advanced scouting is concerned. We've seen him, though, on the sidelines for Central Michigan against Michigan State. Here he is in the background wearing Central Michigan gear. Still don't have the final report from Central Michigan on this, but we do know that the NCAA says, yes, in fact, that is Connor Stalions. Great to know. Here he is on the sidelines with Sharon Moore, standing right next to him. I'm sure there was some benefit there. And we know about the video of him and how much it helped with the advanced scouting. Here's one of the network affiliates, Chad, sidelined from 2 years ago as Michigan is playing Ohio State. And, the news of that moment came after the allegations came out about Stalions, that he was sign stealing. And you can see him right over C.J. Stroud's shoulder, right behind 7. The check with me happens, and watch him with the hat on and the beard, and immediately signals to the defense exactly what's coming.
Pointing up, whatever that signal is, whatever that defense is. That's
knowing what's coming against Ohio State. And Ryan Day, by the way, is on the hot seat for losing to Michigan and trying to avoid it for yet another year. But he denies it in the Netflix special. Here's his quote, one of the quotes that we will hear him say on Netflix, Sign Stealer. I don't recall attending this specific game. He's talking about the Central Michigan game. Well, then Portnoy says, I know the answer to that because he told me, because Portnoy said that's him. Yeah, it was Connor on the sidelines. He's even saying, I don't recall attending this specific game. He says, the quote says he chuckles during this. I don't even think that really looks like me whenever they show him through this Netflix documentary. But here's the quote that's circulating where he says, I never advanced scouted. 1, I've never advanced scouted. 2, if this was about signals, I obtained signals the way every other team does through watching TV copies and talking to other intel guys from other teams. What set me apart was the way in which I organized that information and processed it on game day. If every other team is doing this, then wouldn't the dawn of college football, the dawn of Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, know about all this? And that's been the fall. The fall guy's been Connor Stalions, and no one has said anything and rolled on Harbaugh, which amazes me. And now all of a sudden, here's Connor Stalions in denial. I, for one, love it because the NCAA is powerless in all this. The national champion last year is Michigan, and they won it fair and square. But the Netflix documentary may be the best one we've seen, Chad. It's certainly going to be, I think, turns out better than maybe the Manziel doc, where we wanted more. We wanted more of a series here. But 40 minutes in, he's saying it wasn't him on the sideline for Central Michigan, in Central Michigan gear.
It's
amazing.
It's so weird because the quotes, he's not denying that he was there or saying that's not him. He's saying things like laughing, and that doesn't even look like me.
No, he says he doesn't recall being there.
Yeah, well, that's not a no. That's I don't recall being there. I blacked out. I was blacked out that night.
On the Thursday.
I will have watched this entire thing.
Night.
By the time that we go on air tomorrow, I will have watched this entire documentary.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a preview, just having read excerpts and quotes from it. It's going to piss me off royally. Hutton just laid out a couple of things that's going to piss me off about it also. Here's what really pisses me off based on what I've seen. I just read a New York Times review of it also before the show. And what really pisses me off is that Connor Stalions has duped Netflix into paying him a ton of money for the rights to his story and a documentary. And from what I can tell, where he wanted to be forthcoming was how awesome he is at organization. This is essentially a documentary where Connor Stalions is putting his resume on camera, on the television, to show everyone, here's how detail-oriented I am. And here's where I am the wizard of sign-stealing operations and organization for a football program. Hire me. I'm just better at this job than anyone else. Everyone else does it. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm just better at organization. And then would be cute with his answers like he was about the Central Michigan game. He would evade other questions. He's not going to be confirming anything. He's not really going to deny a lot either. That's what's going to make me mad. Now, again, I withhold judgment until I watch the entire documentary, and I've enjoyed these Untold series. Favorite one still is Malice in the Palace. That's the best one that's aired yet. But I'm excited to watch it. I'll give it a chance. But my preview, Hutton, is that it's going to piss me off royally.
Well, I feel like we know the result and how this is going to be portrayed before we see it. But knowing that and knowing and seeing some of the quotes here where his lawyer's present, they're talking to the NCAA, where he says, for instance, I don't recall ever directing someone to go to a game. This goes back to that message board post where a guy said, even before this came out, like, hey, Vanderbilt, there was a friend of his who was given tickets. If Tennessee had not lost to South Carolina that year, a potential opponent in the college football playoff for Michigan could have been the Tennessee Volunteers. The following week after their matchup against South Carolina, they would have played Vandy here in Nashville. Supposedly, Stalions had given access and tickets and wanted someone to go and help him figure out some signals. Again, advanced scouting would be the term there. The quote, though, is he doesn't recall ever directing someone to go to a game, and then says, I've had a friend send me film. It's kind of like when your aunt gets you a Christmas present that you already have. You're not going to be rude and be like, oh, I already have this. I don't need it.
Yeah, he's so good. He already had everything he needed.
Yeah.
No matter what. It's going to make me mad. Danny Cannell's going to join us later this week. I saw a tweet that he put out that he's seen the documentary, and he said, I wanted to hear more details before really having a strong opinion on what Michigan did. Now it's clear. They clearly cheated. They have blatantly lied about it and the extent of it for a long time. They deserve a very harsh punishment. The entire Harbaugh era at Michigan is now tainted. Well, is what Danny Cannell said.
But consider this. We've known that. That's what's so fascinating to me is everyone, and I think by and large, we talked about this too during the actual story progressing. The college football fan, the average fan, was just kind of nonchalant about it. Oh, everyone's doing it. And to that extent, everyone's just accepted the fact that, yeah, they had something going on there. The NCAA has known it too, but they can't do anything about it. It's so bizarre how the structure is set up to where those in power, quote unquote, those that believe they're in power, don't have anything going on there. But yet they'll chase down someone that's offering, money to a recruit in this age.
And I believe that Jim Harbaugh knew exactly what was going on.
And I
don't think he cares.
Take a long bow. that he was offered to be
Harbaugh,
the honorary captain to take his long bow.
I believe this about Jim Harbaugh. I don't think he's some terrible person or anything.
Yeah.
But I think he is the type of person that can build something up in his mind, and if he doesn't believe it, then it doesn't exist, or doesn't believe in it, then it's not reality to him. He sets his own reality. And he doesn't think that advanced scouting should be something that is policed by the NCAA. So it doesn't exist in his mind. It's not a rule. It's all about his own moral code and what he thinks about the game. And he's got a line he's not willing to cross. I believe that about him. When he sits there and says, never lie, never cheat, attack every day with an enthusiasm unseen in the history of the world, or whatever he says, I think he believes these things in his own mind. I think he also just blatantly doesn't acknowledge actual rules that are in place because he doesn't believe in them. So this is where we are in a lot of different facets of society in 2024. Everyone has their own version of the truth or reality at all times.
Well,
and I think Jim Harbaugh is just living in his own version of reality, and in his reality, that rule is stupid. I believe everyone's doing stuff like this anyways, so I'm not going to acknowledge the rule, nor am I going to play ball with the NCAA about COVID restrictions for practice and workouts, which he got busted with. COVID restrictions on recruiting, got busted with that. This rule, he doesn't even care about it, and he's just going to throw out these platitudes about never lying and never cheating. I believe he believes all these things.
And he loves,
I also don't believe him.
Well, and you know, like yesterday I said, a lot of coaches are like Dion. They just handle things in a different manner instead of banning people from a press conference. He also keeps receipts, Jim Harbaugh, including those from the athletic department where he's on the hot seat. They didn't want to give him the extension. He took a pay cut and all, and then he starts winning. And he goes on to win the national championship. Hoist the trophy. Nobody's got it better than us. We did this fair and square. Again.
What was it George Costanza said on Seinfeld? It's not a lie if you believe it to be true.
Well,
that's Jim Harbaugh. I believe he's convinced himself of all of these things, and it's not reality, but it's his reality.
Well, it's
his truth. He's living his truth, which is a lie when it comes to Connor Stalions and all this NCAA
it all
stuff.
happened. But you even had the president of the American Coaches Association, or whatever it is, like 2 weeks after the story, come out and say, yeah, whenever I was coaching, we sent people with a phone and we were sign stealing. It's just, the whole story is hilarious, and also, yeah, it's annoying and it pisses you off because of how obvious everything is. Chad, is it obvious about which coach has the most to prove this upcoming college football season?
I think it is, and I believe that person that has more to prove than anyone else in all of college football in 2024. And I'm thinking player, program, individual coach. That individual coach is Lincoln Riley at USC. Lincoln Riley is 19-8 right now at USC, and he's going the wrong direction. He went from 11-3 in year one, really 11-2, and then that upset loss to Tulane in the Cotton Bowl. So 11-3 in year one, and then with Caleb Williams coming back and all sorts of expectations on that offense and that team to compete for a national title, the way he at least got himself into the playoff, didn't really compete, but got himself into the playoff while at Oklahoma, that was the expectation at USC a year ago. Instead, they go 8-5. He's going in the wrong direction 2 years in, going into year three.
Huge disappointment.
Let's compare that to Brent Venables, who took over at Oklahoma. Hutton, if you would have told me when Lincoln Riley took the bag to go to USC and live in that expensive mansion in Malibu on the beach and everything else with USC, if you would have told me that Oklahoma would be ranked higher in the preseason AP poll going into year three than USC, I would have thought you were crazy. I didn't believe Brent Venables was going to do better than Lincoln Riley. Now, record-wise, to be fair, he hasn't. He's 16-10. But he's going the right direction.
Yeah,
they were 6-7 in year one.
Yep.
And a year ago, they're 10-3, Oklahoma. Both programs transitioning to a new conference, Oklahoma to the SEC, USC to the Big Ten.
And that was part of the storyline. He didn't want to coach.
Big part of the storyline.
to coach the SEC schedule. Remember that?
Big part of it. Now he gets to go coach in the Big Ten schedule where he's got a brutal travel schedule for his team located in Southern California, playing teams on the East Coast and Midwest. So Brent Venables in Oklahoma preseason 16th. Lincoln Riley in USC preseason 23rd. USC playing LSU on Sunday night. Lincoln Riley's got a ton to prove. He was the boy wonder offensive genius of Oklahoma. He had the world in the palm of his hand. He could have kept churning out Big 12 titles and going to a playoff and probably losing in the playoff to a superior SEC team. But regardless, he could have done that year after year. Instead, he left, surprised everyone when he did it, goes to USC, and now he's got to go into the Big Ten at USC in the Pac-12. I don't know if he's equipped for it. And I'm shocked to be saying that.
Well,
they've made the move at defensive coordinator to someone different. They have to improve on defense. That is number one. But this appears to be a soft program. They're the opposite of Utah. Utah, that does not have the talent of USC every year, manhandles USC when they go head-to-head.
Well,
the last couple of years. Why? Because they're tough.
USC didn't have the talent of USC in recent years. That was why Helton was out. They couldn't recruit up to their standard. Riley can, but this is year 3. Officially, it is his program now. There's no more excuses about, holding over certain players from a different staff and all that. This is his program, his vision, and I mean, he's known as the Heisman whisperer, and he takes Caleb Williams there and goes and wins the Heisman after doing that with quarterbacks in the past. Again, it's hard to argue about the pressure of Riley. We haven't talked about him enough. USC's kind of been the afterthought. With Oregon coming in, they've got the chance to win. You've got Washington that's overshadowed USC recently. And here's the other interesting. They've named Miller Moss their quarterback this week. And they have a new quarterback coach. Riley's known as the quarterback guy, and he's been the quarterback coach. And now they have a new, set apart from him, their own QB coach now that he's brought in and given that coaching duty to. That's also very interesting.
So
he does that.
Miller Moss looked really good in the bowl game, in the Holiday Bowl. So he's got a chance to have another great quarterback there. Another area that he's going the wrong direction in. You mentioned recruiting. When he took over, they were 9th in the nation. He immediately made a splash with that first class. Since then, they've gone from 16th to 18th with the current class.
How many of those were
That's
Oklahoma
fifth
guys following
in the Big Ten.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know if Caleb Williams can. This was not portal. This was just high school recruiting. So I don't think it counts the portal in that either. And he got Caleb Williams to come with him also.
Yep.
On top of that.
Yeah,
There's a lot of proving to be done by Lincoln Riley. I'm not completely out on him
by
yet.
the way.
But if they start this season getting blown out by LSU
and it's a game,
in this game in Vegas, it's going to be rough.
It was said whenever he took over that gig, because this was a part of the SEC discussion about how he was leaving before Oklahoma joined the SEC, that he wanted USC to get out of this game, this specific game against LSU 2 years ago. Wanted to get rid of this game to open the season. That's also very interesting. I don't blame him. Well, yeah, I mean,
this is not where I'd want to be if I'm him. Going into this season, first year in the Big Ten, and opening with LSU on a neutral site, with all of this to prove. And again, Brent Venables is the more marquee coach between the two of you. After you're the one who bolted Oklahoma for USC, conceivably you take a job because what you're saying is the job you're leaving is worse than that job. And you're going to a better destination. And instead, Oklahoma looks better than USC right now. And looks like the better job. This
is the problem, Chad, with the structure of head coaching in college football. He's making $10 million plus. I think it's more now. I think he's maybe he's now the 4th highest paid college football coach. But he earned $20 million total his first year at USC.
Crazy.
Isn't that nuts?
And that was just to get him to leave Oklahoma where he was making so much. But here's their schedule to start. LSU, then they're going to beat Utah State, then they get an early bye week. They go to Ann Arbor to take on Michigan. They get Wisconsin at home. They go to Minnesota, and then Penn State comes to town.
Wow,
that is a brutal welcome to the Big Ten moment for them. And then, of course, the annual game with Notre Dame late in the season.
Yeah.
Their schedule gets easier after that. They go to Maryland. They get Rutgers.
But by then,
Washington's going to be rebuilding.
Done.
Then they get another off week. They get Nebraska at home, UCLA, and then Notre Dame to end the season.
And this is a god-awful defense from a year ago.
But if you've got 2 to 3 losses already when you get to October, early mid-October, not good. Lot of proof for that
There's
guy.
That schedule. Yeah, brutal. That's a 4-pack of games after their bye. That is not fun, even for standards of USC.
And I just thought when he took that job, what's going to happen is he's going to get the top quarterbacks in America, much like bringing Caleb Williams with him. Got Caleb Williams out of Washington, D.C., to go to Oklahoma, to Norman, Oklahoma. Then he brought Caleb Williams with him to Southern California, to L.A. to play for USC. So it was just, hey, they're going to get the top guys in America. They're going to come in. They're going to have a number 1 overall pick type quarterback every single year, and he's going to be competing right there in line for the top 4, not the 12-team playoff. At the time, the 4-team playoff every year. That's not been the case, and that surprised me. He also swung and missed on Malachi Nelson, who was the number 1 overall player in the class. I think that included Arch Manning, or maybe the one before. 5-star quarterback. That guy could not start for him at USC. That guy also can't start at Boise State.
Well, that means
so that's
being
one
ranked
that
a 5-star was a swing and miss,
everyone missed on him, and that's a rare miss on a guy like that. The last one I can think of is probably JT Daniels, who bounced around everywhere and could barely start or hang on as a starter everywhere he went. But it's rare that a 5-star quarterback can't start quickly, and he has now not been named the starter at USC and Boise State. So that's one that just everyone missed on.
What's consistent is he doesn't miss on getting 5 stars.
I don't put that on. I don't put that on Lincoln Riley. He transferred out because he didn't get the job, and then he couldn't get the job at Boise State.
You're right about the trends, though. Again, he's the quarterback guy. He's the Heisman quarterback guy, and missed on this, but then now has hired a separate quarterback coach for his team. Again, maybe that's him figuring out he needs better structure as a head coach, but he was doing well at Oklahoma.
The goal is simple at USC. This is the mission statement. You were hired to be the Michigan and Ohio State of the West.
Bring back 2005.
If the Big Ten is a hierarchy and we have a tier system here, you are USC. You are to be as powerful and dominant as what Ohio State and Michigan bring to the Midwest right now. That is what your goal is to be at USC. You're not going to pussyfoot around it and sit here and say, oh, well, let's just compete with UCLA and hope we can beat Washington. No. You're USC. Fight on, boys. Let's go. And it's got to get better for him, and he's got a ton to prove.
Chad, maybe we're going to see ESPN get a bit better. They reported at least 5 firings yesterday behind the scenes, the executive level. And Burke Magnus, the one announcing the changes,
the one Pat McAfee loves.
You're right.
Yeah, he always talks about him.
ESPN announced the changes will allow the company to be, quote, more strategic, collaborative, and nimble as we continue to excel in every area and function. We remain committed to employee development, and the restructure will result in new positions or promotions for people who are expanding their responsibilities or taking on new challenges. All that to say, the perception is that they are getting away from the political discussion and turning more towards the path of sports. We've discussed this quite a bit. I thought, the hire of McAfee was down that path anyway, and they've stated, the rule that they don't want a ton of political talk, even though they don't, discipline those who bring things up. But this would be great for them. This is what the viewing audience wants. By and large, if it's not live sports, I'm not tuning in. And if they got back to that, if they got back to more of the SVP version of what that network puts on air, I think you get back the diehard fan that says, I don't need the opinion of someone that's against how I feel and wants to have an argument and hates me instead of wanting to have a discussion about things. But I could find that literally anywhere else. Give me my escape. Maybe this is more in line with that. But the way they've treated McAfee, you mentioned Burke Magnus, and that's one of McAfee's guys. I mean, they let this dude do whatever he wants. I mean, he can be belligerent on air in Ireland. But the next morning, he's, how much is McAfee hung over?
Top of the morning to you.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
They can joke about it.
But you can also, have that, any type of discussion we want to have on other employees that can also get away with it.
Well,
Mina Kimes, we were talking about her last week. They don't say anything to her.
Let's dive into this a little bit. So I don't know what it says about ESPN's future or purpose because they had to do cost cuts.
Well, but it's 5, though.
I mean, that's
from
what
the
this
executive
is.
level.
Yes, well, great.
But you're replacing them with
somebody
a
at
different
Disney
direction.
came in and said, get rid of some execs. The C-suite's too full. Kick some people out. There's some bloated salaries in there, and we got to get a little bit more nimble and economically in how we're doing it.
And they're going younger.
Here's the smart way to go if you're ESPN. And Disney. Disney's got everything. Disney can be political with Disney Plus if they want to. They are. With movies and shows they have. They can do politics. Okay, all these major conglomerates, they do a little bit of everything. It's very simple for Burke Magnus. You do sports at ESPN. We can get all these other, LGBTQ agendas into our cartoons at Disney Plus. We'll take care of that for you, Burke. You cover the sports. And here's how you get back to covering sports and appealing to the sports fan. Hire on-air personalities that want to do sports. That's simple. The people who get the most political, especially on the left, that I watch on ESPN, I truly question how much some of them really like sports. And how many of them just honestly say, hey, I'm pretty good on television. I went to college for this, to be on TV. Why not sports? That's an easy route to go. I can read a teleprompter. I can do this or that. I can talk about the NBA. But what they really want to do is talk about female reproductive rights on air. Or they want to talk about the upcoming election. Or Mina Kimes wants to endorse a Democratic candidate for mayor of Los Angeles or wherever the hell she was trying to promote a candidate. So just get away from that. Get people who are into sports that want to put on a good sports product, and you're going to be fine because that appeals to sports fans. McAfee and Herbstreit are criticized by some for being right-leaning because some things they say. Some things Kirk Herbstreit said on with Dan Dockich. Some things that Pat McAfee says or guests that he has on. But there's one thing I don't question about those guys. Those dudes love sports. Kirk Herbstreit loves college football. Kirk Herbstreit is an encyclopedia of college football history when he talks about the game. Pat McAfee's a sports guy. He wants to talk about sports. It's beautiful. There's a place for that. It was ESPN. Let's get back to it.
Well, I don't know if they're getting back to it, but they are referring to this as a reorganization. What they're going towards, though, is a younger and influenced audience. Because one of the top execs now, according to the Hollywood Reporter, is Mike McQuaid, 37-year ESPN vet. They're bringing him in, but then younger staff beneath him. But the new executive vice president of sports production is newly named executive vice president in that spot. Again, all studio shows. So this is the new name, and he's been there for a while. So again, there is talent on the loyal talent of ESPN for the executive level. Not all of them are gone. They're getting promotions. So maybe it's not a reorganization is a way to phrase something however you want it to just across the board umbrella. We'll see though, because for all of the yes, McAfee and Herbstreit love sports. So does Stephen A. Smith, and he's not voting conservative, right? Like he's openly asking for Kamala Harris to speak so that he can endorse her.
I'm openly asking for her to speak too. I'd love to hear from her.
But you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
But he's doing it in a manner that makes sense.
Well, I'm not saying that they all are like that.
I think Mina Kimes loves sports.
I'm saying most are that way. At least that's the sense I get from them. I don't.
But here's the thing, Chad. If you don't discipline anyone now, then you're allowing anyone to just spout off, and it becomes what you're trying to get away from. McAfee can literally say anything he wants to. So wouldn't Mina Kimes feel the same way?
I just think all of this is more about money.
Well,
I think that they have been told to get rid of talent to make way for those that can be more flexible. Here's an example. Sam Ponder's gone. I don't think because Sam Ponder talked about, men not being in women's sports. I think it's because Sam Ponder only did the NFL Countdown show and nothing else. And they can get Mike Greenberg to do 4 different jobs with a salary they're paying him, and that's more indisposable to ESPN than Sam Ponder.
Sure, but, they're also paying McAfee and negotiating now with Stephen A.
And they're going to pay them a ton.
And they cut whenever McAfee came in.
For sure.
And now they're preparing to pay Stephen
They're prepared to pay certain people, not all people.
Yeah,
the ESPN of 10 years ago
but how
paid
much money,
everyone.
How much money are they saving, though, is my question.
Well, it's in the grand scheme of Disney, pennies.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Not even a penny. But it still doesn't change the fact that shareholders and people with a stake in the company don't go in and do this all the time and say, hey, go cut these people and alter their lives because we need to see a better prospectus for next quarter.
Yeah.
So, that stuff happens everywhere. Yes, of course. Disney can't afford it if they wanted to, but the old ESPN, I'm talking ESPN of 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
I feel like they just paid people and put them in a sock drawer somewhere, and you never saw them again. I think they had $1 million a year people, $500,000 a year that maybe did a SportsCenter hit once a month. They just wanted to get everybody, and they paid everyone. That's no longer going to be the case. And they are going to have people who bring more, bigger on-air personalities, talent that can do more things. Like a Pat McAfee, like a Stephen A. Smith. One of the things he said in his negotiation was, I want to do more. I want to have a bigger NFL presence. With what ESPN does to the NFL, he knows where it's going.
And he also wants the YouTube presence, so he can do his own thing there, too.
He's smart. He knows where it's going, and he wants to be the guy.
First Take isn't political, though.
No.
Yeah, he's by and large, we react to what he says on his YouTube channel more so than anything else, because that's where he says whatever he wants to say, and he keeps his show. By the way, he can say whatever he wants to say on First Take. He keeps his show the way he wants to keep his show. It's his program, just like it's McAfee's program. And now Burke Magnus and others, they have a chance to restructure and move in a different direction. Will they? Well, Chad, I guess my overall thought is we thought they were with McAfee, and then we spent a week talking about Mina Kimes.
I don't.
That's my point.
I know the headline's going to say something about them doing away with politics. I don't think it has anything to do with politics. I think it has everything to do with cost cutting, and I don't know whether their stance is on politics, because now what was a double standard where people on the right got disciplined for saying things, now that's not happening at least, but people on the left aren't going to get disciplined either. So that's not a balance. That's not a tit for tat, so to speak. But it's at least an improvement that now anyone on either side seemingly can voice their opinion and not be disciplined. Other than Dan Orlovsky, who for whatever reason got an angry text or call from someone and decided to take down that post, which still baffles me as to why that would be the case. That's the only evidence we have of that really happening. And again, I'm talking of the last couple months. I know Bobby Barack has it well chronicled, everything that's happened over the years at ESPN and their double standard on those things. And it's all true. He's right about it. There is a double standard. I think they've gotten away from the double standard. I really don't know what their political stance is as much as
they had a policy that you
some overlord from Disney came in and said, you need to get rid of this much money, do it however you want, and we will sparkle up that press release and tell everyone how we're reorganizing and getting more versatile for the next 5 years and going younger and doing all this. And I don't buy half of it.
Just a thought as John McClain's coming up. A bit off path, but same company, same discussion. Pat McAfee had Aaron Rodgers on weekly.
Mm-hmm.
And then the offseason happened, right? Is he back on weekly coming up in week 1?
Great question.
Because
I hope so.
If we're talking about fair balance and opinion, they want him on there for the ratings. But then all of a sudden the discussion was, no, we don't. But then he went away. McAfee was like, it's my call. Then the next week he was on again. So we'll find out soon if he's back on weekly. That would be the show he's going to do. Who knows? Maybe he's going to be on other shows. Maybe Mina Kimes and Aaron Rodgers will host.
He'll have some opinions on how we're feeding our kids, much like RFK Jr.
He will.
That he'll share on that show, too.